On Saturday, at a gay pride parade in Cardiff, police removed protesters from the lesbian activist group Get the L Out UK. And this followed an alleged confrontation between the protesters and transgender marchers. In a clip from the incident, police can be heard saying, "Whatever you are," when having a conversation with the lesbian activists. Let's have a listen.
We're marching in a march.
At the moment...
No, I just want to make sure...
Yeah, you know now. Let me just explain to you, and it'll give you some understanding.
Yeah.
So at the moment, your march, this group of people, is causing confrontation between different groups of people,
We're lesbians.
okay?
We're lesbians, it's gay pride.
Whatever you are at the moment is causing... Safely march yourself.
We don't want to do that. We want to be part of
your choice. So what I'm telling you is to make sure it's safe. We are going to remove you from the road, and I want you to do that of your own accord.
I want to make sure I understand that you're removing lesbians from like LGBT march.
Yes, that is.
And joining us now is Angela Wilde, who is a member of the Get the L Out UK group. Thank you very much for joining me today. Angela, we could hear you in the video there, and you were effectively told by the police that you weren't able to be there. You're a lesbian group. You're there to protest. You had banners saying lesbians don't like penises, and you were protesting against the way in which gender identity ideology has been hostile to lesbian women. Can you explain exactly what happened and how the confrontation emerged?
So we started by walking in front of the parade with our banners to be visible to the marchers, but also to the people in the crowd. We stopped the parade effectively for about 3 minutes. The police then came and asked us to move. We said we had the right to be here. And they then asked us to move at the back of the march. Now, from experience, we know that if we go in the march or at the back of the march, it's a very dangerous place for us. We have had countless experiences of lesbians who have been assaulted within LGBT marches. So we maintained that we wanted to stay at the front where we are the safest. The police came back and said, yeah, that's okay. You can do that. We marched for about 10 minutes. Then we got surrounded by both the police and trans activists who were becoming more and more hostile towards us and closer as well towards us. The police then said, you are obstructing the march. We are going to remove you. And that's part of the clip that you saw. They threatened some of us with forcible removal. They threatened some of us with arrest. So that's what happened. I'm not sure you hear me properly here.
No, I can hear you perfectly well, Angela. I wanted to just clarify that because, in fairness, I should say the police issued a statement and they made the claim that the lesbian activists were blocking the march and therefore they had no choice but to remove you.
That's not correct. That's not accurate. We initially blocked the march until they allow us to march with, at the front. We were marching and then they said, you have to go. We were actually on the move when they told us to leave.
Now, some people will be astonished at the idea that at a pride parade, pride has always been a protest event, that lesbians who are protesting for their cause should be asked to leave. I mean, that doesn't really make sense to a lot of people. Can you explain, it's a very complicated issue, I understand, but can you explain what are the main concerns that your group has and what are your aims?
So our name is Get the L Out, and what we have been talking about for a number of years is that the LGBT, we don't call it that anymore, the LGBT doesn't represent lesbians and actually work against lesbians. There is this myth that the LGBT is this great family and that everybody has the same common goal and the same issues. It's not true. In fact, within this LGBT family, you have several groups that sometimes outright conflict very badly. So, for example, for a lesbian, our rights are in direct conflict with men who identify as lesbians. And so we are talking about this. We are saying it's not possible. For example, one of the reasons that we wanted to march is to talk about that specifically and say that we do not like men. We do not have. No, sorry, it's not like we don't like that. It's that we do not want to have relationship with men, and that we do not like penises. And this, I think, is the reason we got removed. There is this this idea that this is a transphobic thing to say.
Well, no,
That
this is astonishing, isn't it? Because the idea that lesbians are not interested in people with penises seems to be a given, right? I mean, that should be...
Yeah.
But actually, it's not. I mean, you mentioned on one of the banners that you had, it talked about how the cotton ceiling discourse is equivalent to rape. And what people won't understand what the cotton ceiling is. Well, maybe you can explain it to us. What exactly is the cotton ceiling?
So the cotton ceiling is the sexual pressure, the coercion, and sometimes sexual violence that lesbians experience at the hand of men who identify as trans. So there's this idea that men who identify as lesbians are being victimized by lesbians when we refuse to have sex with them. So the cotton of the cotton ceiling is actually the underwear of the lesbian, which is seen as representing a barrier to real trans rights. We are gatekeeping these men's womanhood, their validation. And this is seen as very hateful, it's seen as a hate crime. We are routinely called Nazis, and I mean, it's ridiculous. I was hearing your interview before. This is exactly the same thing that happened to us. We've been called sexual racist by Nancy Kelly from Stonewall for the statement that we do not want to have sex with male people.
And people will be absolutely baffled by that because, of course, at the heart of gay rights has always been a recognition that there are biological sex differences. And you know, it used to be back in the day, in the 80s, they would say to lesbians, well, you just haven't found the right man yet. And it feels like Stonewall is saying the same.
Yes, and now it's the term is girl penis. You know, they will just
there's a more
explicit
term. Yeah.
You know, it's a bit more rude than that if you go online. But they have just used exactly the same rhetoric, but now it's more progressive because it's trans people who are being oppressed and we are seen as the baddies. Yes.
But has
I think
there
what's
been
really, really interesting... Sorry.
Some trans activists have claimed that members of your group have been shouting and abusive and all that kind of thing. Did any of that go on?
No, we were standing in the clip. You can see that one of our members got shouted at by a trans activist. She turned back. She told that person to back off, and then she turned away, which has been always our behavior. We are there. We stand our ground. We have the right to be here. We have the right to express ourselves, and not only the right, I feel like in a Pride March, it should be the place where lesbians can celebrate our same-sex attraction. That's, I think, what most people understand a gay march to be about.
What do you say when people accuse you of being transphobic and being hateful towards trans people?
I say that it's really, it's really not the case. I mean, we do not subscribe to the idea that there is anything such as transgenderism, like gender ideology, that somebody can be born in the wrong body or somebody can actually change sex. So we don't believe that there are some trans people. For us, there are men and there are women, and part of these people we consider having, relationship with, they are females, and some of them we do not, they are male because we are lesbian, and that's where it stops. If now some member of these men want to identify or call themselves women, that is on them. If they think that makes them women, that's fine. We do not have to believe that, and we do not have to agree, and we do not have to be coerced into having relationship with people we don't want to.
I understand. So you're not saying that people shouldn't have the right to identify as they choose or live the life that they choose. You're talking about lesbians being coerced into accepting that ideology.
Absolutely. I think people can believe whatever they like. Equally, we can believe whatever we like, and nobody should be forced to embrace an ideology to make somebody else comfortable, which it really is what trans activism is about.
And do you feel that, I mean, I know I've spoken to a number of gay people who no longer feel that Pride is for them, that it's a kind of hostile environment now for them. But you're making a stand because you're going to these Pride events. Some people would say, well, if it's not a safe space for you, why not just steer clear? So why are you doing it?
We're doing it because exactly for that reason, because we need people to see what is going on. For us, it's not new. Lesbians historically were the first target and victims of this ideology, sometimes in a very intimate way. The cotton ceiling, we have spoken to women who have been raped. We are losing and we have lost all our lesbian spaces. You cannot have one lesbian disco without a male turning up and demanding to be accepted in it. And we suffer that in silence for a very long time, like decades. And it's, as we see, gender critical feminism is gaining in terms of awareness, which is absolutely great. But people need also to realize there is a very specific lesbian problem, and this is one of them. It's important that we talk about it. And I know it's very difficult. I mean, we're talking about rape and sexual violence. It's not conversation people want to have in polite society. However, it happens. We've had years of Me Too where everybody agrees that, sexual coercion and rape and violence is bad. And yet women, lesbians are saying we have sexual boundaries too. And the trans movement is just calling us bigot for it. Surely this needs to be discussed.
Absolutely. Well, Angela Wilde, thank you very much for coming on and clearing a lot of that up. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.